Daddy eats lots. Daddy eats lots. Daddy eats lots. Munch, munch, munch.
Hello and welcome to Daddy Eats Last, where we discuss the challenges of being a man in modern society and whatever the hell that even means. I'm Kane, and joining me today to chat man stuff are Ryan and Maddie. All right, gents, tonight we were going to discuss TV shows, really TV shows when we were kids, TV shows we remember and how they may have shaped our lives or how we remember them. And if we've ever gone back and rewatched them and just gone, that's actually garbage, or if it was as good as we remember. Who would like to kick off with a TV show from their childhood which they just adored?
Where do we start, Kane? There were so many.
I grew up at the beginning, Matthew. Start at the beginning.
So I grew up in the 90s, and we were lucky enough to have a plethora of TV shows back in those days. So Saturday morning cartoons was a big one. We used to get up early, sneak down to the kitchen, just crack the TV on about 7 o'clock. And one of the big shows I used to watch as a kid was Saved by the Bell. Now, that was an American sort of comedy show, 30 minutes, generally just about the hijinks of these six high school students. Principal there who was always, hovering over the kids' shoulders, but, they used to get scheming things and things like that. So it was funny back in the day, and it did go on to... they went to college, so they had a college series, and then I think also a wedding and a Hawaiian episode as well. So it did go on for quite a while. We didn't launch the careers of too many people massively. I think Tiffany Amber Thiessen was one of the girls. She was one of the main characters, and she was quite a hottie back in those days. But yeah, that was for me. Saved by the Bell was great. Saturday morning, chatting with the kids at school the next week.
Now, Matthew, as a big Saved by the Bell fan, and obviously, we do see Ryan most weeks when we record the podcast. He has more than a passing resemblance to Zach, do you think?
Yes, he does actually. Yeah.
Ryan, this is obviously a little bit before your time, but Mark Paul Gosselaar, and it's well worth Googling. Maybe someone has pointed out previously, but if not, definitely jump on the Googles and throw that name into the Google. The likeness to you, my friend, is uncanny.
No, this is definitely a first. I've never had this one. What's the name? I'm definitely going to have to Google this.
Yeah, Mark Paul Gosselaar. If you just put in Zach from Saved by the Bell, he'll certainly come up.
But I will have to check out. I do know the show Saved by the Bell. I like how you say kids shows, because I was thinking about this during the week when my buddy's texting me going, "Ryan, what are you doing in January?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And he goes, "Doesn't matter. We're going and watching the new Dragon Ball Z movie that comes out the first day that it opens." So I don't know necessarily if I'd say that this is a kid show, because we're literally going and watching the movie in 2 months. So still clearly watch it. But yeah, I was a big fan of the DBZ, Dragon Ball Z, and Pokemon was huge back then. So obviously a big fan of that. But one, I guess, if you think of sort of adolescence, a couple of shows that really come to mind that sort of shaped that period. The OC, so Orange County, I'm sure most people would know about it. Yeah, a lot of people probably turned off it when Marissa died. But I actually watched that a year ago, because I'd never watched season 4. And I was like, all right, well, that was absolutely massive. And yeah, it was part of the reason why when I was in America earlier this year in LA, I was like, all right, well, I better go to Orange County just to say it. Another huge one that, again, being in America, it's kind of bad how many TV shows I like have American resemblance. And as Matt said, I'm sure we'll touch on The Simpsons. But for me, How I Met Your Mother was something that we just grew up on. And I watched the first episode on Netflix a week ago. And when it came up that it was 2005, I was just like, oh, that makes me feel quite old. But watching that show, that was one that was never missed, as we were sort of late teens and definitely going through uni.
Well, so I'm slightly older than you, gentlemen. So I think I grew up in the golden age of cartoons. Early to mid 80s were traditional cartoon sort of drawing ability and how they were presented, as opposed to now, which is almost that sort of real life CGI sort of stuff where I'm from the old school where it was literally just pictures and you could almost see frames flipping across. I'm not talking sort of Steamboat Mickey sort of time, but yeah, I guess not long after that with regards to what they could do back then. So Astroboy and Voltron and yeah, those sort of shows which were in my eyes the golden age of the cartoon era.
This is going to be interesting because we're sort of, we don't really cross over the age gaps here. So you're young
I
to
had
watch.
a chuckle when Ryan mentioned the OC. I couldn't have thought of anything worse than watching that, apart from watching maybe Beverly Hills 90210, which would have been when I was about 13 that came out. And then I guess the OC would have been the equivalent, like maybe 10 years later. Except the people in the OC
It would have been, yeah.
maybe only been 5 years older than the people they were playing, where 90210, I'm pretty sure they're playing 18-year-olds, and at least 2 or 3 of them were 35 plus. The most any of them went on to was maybe Sharknado 1, 2, and 3.
That was Ian's
Can't say
era,
I've
wasn't
ever
it?
seen a Sharknado one.
You must watch Sharknado. It is one of those sort of cult, crappy 1 hour and a half sort of films, which is so bad that it's funny. I certainly recommend it. You could probably watch on YouTube for free now.
Keeping Tara Reid's career alive, I think, isn't it?
Pretty much. And what about when you were really young? Do you guys remember anything from when you were really young? I always remember Astro Boy and Captain Planet, but when you were really little, what was the first sort of memory of watching TV?
I think Captain Planet for me as well was a big one. Every day after school, we used to throw that on, and while your powers combined.
Which was your favourite?
That was really
power, Matthew?
probably Wheeler, who had the firepower. Which again, Ryan, you should probably Google that because you look like him a little bit as well.
Wonderful.
But I
The
think it was,
doppelganger episode.
Oh, definitely. I'm going to have all these 90s doppelganger TV shows here. So I would say Power Rangers, probably the early one that I sort of think that we got on. But I do remember Captain Planet. I think I was probably the back end of that. And really like old school Transformers. That was kind of another one that I remember when I was really little that we sort of got touched on in, and then it obviously got rejuvenated.
Yeah, Power Rangers. I could sit through worse than the Power Rangers.
I actually read an interesting article about Power Rangers the other day, not to bring it down a little bit, but that creator, he bought the rights to this show in Japan, I think, which was basically Power Rangers Japan. Used all the stock footage they had there, brought it to the States, hired these young teenage kids, paid them pittance, treated them like crap, and made millions. So,
and dress them up in lycra suits, which now find their way to different sporting events. Somehow, somewhere, there's someone dressed up in a Power Rangers equivalent in the stands. It's mind-boggling.
But I mean, even saying as a kid, like I'm pretty sure Power Rangers came out with a movie last I saw it. So I don't know that they're necessarily stays kid shows, or I don't know if that just says more about my lack of maturity or lack of ability to grow up beyond kid shows.
It's nostalgia. You like to go back to things that you understand and which are common to you. But just on that, how do you feel when one of your TV shows is brought out and made into a movie?
I think for most of the times that I've seen it happen, it's probably not been done well. Like it's been a bit of a disappointment. But occasionally, sometimes, like it's absolutely phenomenal and it's really good. But I think for a lot of the times that I don't go and watch these movies alone. I should asterisk that. I don't sort of go, all right, the Power Rangers movie's on, I'm going to go watch that and sit there by myself. But it's kind of catching up with friends of mine from when we were kids and that sort of thing. So you're right, we sort of get the nostalgia out of it. And for that reason, I always go to the movies and go, I had a really good time. Whether the movie's any good, yeah. Most of the time they're probably a bit disappointing, but good on them for trying.
I think the problem is sometimes when they try and make a movie out of like a 30-minute, or what's generally a 30-minute TV show, it just doesn't have the same appeal as the TV show is. So you can sit back, watch a Simpsons episode for half an hour, and just that's it. You can switch off and go to your thing. You can lose yourself that 30 minutes and not have to think too much about watching it. But sitting there for a good 90 minutes or an hour and a half, you've got to try and follow the storyline a lot more. And it just, unless it's a great storyline, it's not really going to never be as good, I don't think.
Yeah, I think the list of films that I could just think of the top of my head, which came from TV shows, which I kind of used to watch in some format. The Entourage movie, terrible. Simpsons movie, terrible. South Park movie, the first 23 minutes, the equivalent of one episode, was probably the funniest 23 minutes of anything I've ever seen, but for the next hour was horrible. Astroboy, terrible. Maybe that is all they can kind of cope with, or all we can cope with attention span wise, is just that 23, 24, 25 minutes, however long the episode goes for. Trying to expand that out is really difficult, and especially if it's not something you've seen for maybe 10 or 15 years, and to have that adapted to a movie. Now, I've always found that a difficult thing to kind of latch onto and really enjoy, because I do remember the nostalgia around the original.
Ryan, being 10 or so years younger than Kane and myself, like Seinfeld or Friends or any of those kind of TV shows, were you big on those, or did you?
Funny enough, like occasionally we'll just be doing things around the house on the weekend and that, and Seinfeld will be playing. And I've now probably watched a couple of episodes only in the last year. Friends, no. So I just missed that boat. So Friends was probably in the back end as I was sort of getting into shows like that. I think How I Met Your Mother, for a lot of the people sort of my age, took over from Friends and sort of became that show of the friends getting together in New York and that sort of thing. I don't know what it would be now, because I think Netflix and Stan and just having TV on demand is amazing, but I think it's taken a little bit away from a TV show, because I would always love, like, especially as a kid, knowing that The Simpsons were on at 6 o'clock. And I think my mum loved it as well, because she was like, well, she wasn't too keen on us watching The Simpsons, because The Simpsons can teach you some good lessons and some very important life lessons, and The Simpsons can teach you some smart ass lessons and annoy your parents. But she knew that that was half an hour a piece. Like, for that 30 minutes, she could cook dinner, she could do something, she could just have half an hour a piece. But the anticipation of going, all right, it's coming up to 6 o'clock and that. Whereas now it's sort of like, if you watch a TV show, you just click watch the next episode. I don't know if that means that it's lost a little bit of the nostalgia, but yeah, unfortunately I missed the Seinfeld and Friends boat, although I did power through Friends when I got on it.
And do you guys watch much TV these days?
Less than a handful of shows that I watch, and again with Netflix and Stan, that I can control when I watch them. But apart from that, like, I try and avoid the news and free to air TV. It's been a long time since I've probably gotten onto a show with that.
A lot of the shows you see advertised on free to air these days they just make you angry. Like, one of them, I remember Bride and Prejudice, and every time the ads come on for that, it's one of those reality TV shows. You think, why would they even? Who watches this crap? Honestly, these situations they put these people in, or they're probably just actors anyway. But I don't know how it rates to stay alive, to be honest. But in terms of TV watch at the moment, we're the same, Ryan. We don't really watch a hell of a lot, and the majority of it is probably APC for kids, to be honest. When the kids have got it on, so definitely not as much as what we used to.
Mine's pretty much restricted to live sport now. If there's some sort of live sport on, I'll probably watch that. Everything else you can watch it when you want to. So yeah, much the same. I don't watch much TV at all, to be honest. I think the TV maybe goes on once or twice a week, and it will be something like a Stan, or if we've managed to record something which we might like to watch, or stream something off YouTube or something like that, just on the TV. But there's not very little sort of free to air TV watched outside of live sport, because you can't replicate that.
No, that's definitely something that, yeah, if I'm watching TV, it's pretty much sport. But whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, like, personally, I think it's a good thing that we're watching less TV, because there can be a lot of health effects with TV. But like, I'd have to say, thinking about, going back to being a kid and watching cartoons and that, my obsession with The Simpsons, I think, has actually helped with life. Now, whether that is a good thing or a bad thing, I'm sure my parents would argue that case, and they certainly would continue to say, I wish you knew homework or maths or English or that as much as you can quote every Simpsons episode between seasons 2 and 10 when they were really good. But I mean, the amount of life stuff that I took from that, I don't know with all the reality TV shows and that, whether that's actually better or worse, or the fact that people do watch less TV, or it is on demand. But I definitely would actually point to The Simpsons and go, rightly or wrongly, I've been shaped a lot by that show.
That's funny, isn't it? There's that much reality TV on television these days, which are real people, but real people don't resonate and teach you as many sort of life lessons in inverted commas as a parody show about a dysfunctional family. It's bizarre.
It was really, really interesting. So my taste in music is probably a bit different to my partner's taste, and she would have very much a more credible taste in music than I. And she was talking about the Beatles, now one of the most infamous bands ever. And I've never forgot this because it was early on when we were dating. And then she found out that I was not very well musically versed. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really know who the Beatles are. And I've never really listened to them. And then she starts ringing them off. And then she says, Ringo Starr. And I go, oh, absolutely. And I could tell you so much about the Beatles. And she's like, I thought you've never heard a song from them. And I'm like, no, The Simpsons. It's fine. I've had that a number of times with a lot of things where I've gone, yeah, I wouldn't know about that unless it was for The Simpsons.
Yeah, it's the pop culture references they pepper in there because it is a really well-written TV show, especially early on, and that many sort of Easter eggs that they call now, or sort of in-jokes that the writers put in there, which teach you about different things and different references, which you can pick up from that and use in real life. I didn't realize TK had such great taste in music though.
Yeah, far better than mine. This is probably gonna turn a lot of people off who listen to this, but it was early on, and she's like, so what was the last concert that you went to? And I was like, oh, Nickelback. And she was just like, oh, we have very different tastes in music styles. And I was like, yeah, well, I didn't know the Beatles beyond The Simpsons, so that's probably fair to say.
Man, and she went out with you again after that?
I know.
You're a very lucky man.
I actually go back to a few of, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like you didn't stress as much when you were a kid, or you just had a bit more excitement or something. But like sometimes if we go and stay somewhere and they have Fox, Saturday mornings I'll just watch The Simpsons. I won't even leave the room. Or if I'm having a bad day, like I have gone and watched an episode of Dragon Ball Z, and whilst it's very different when you're a lot older, it sort of made you feel a lot better. And I've found like cartoons and shows back then, and even, you know, going and watching early How I Met Your Mother, it just sort of, you tune out for half an hour and it's pretty comforting. What about your kids, Matty? Have they clinged on to any sort of cartoons or shows at this stage?
Yeah, they've both gone through the Peppa Pig phase. I think Eloise is still on there. One pretty cool show is called Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom. I'm not sure if you know this one, Kane, but this is by the creators of Peppa Pig. And
same voices,
a little bit, same voices and stuff, but it's just a little bit older, I guess. And even in those kind of episodes, they sneak little Easter eggs, Kane, as you call them, and little things for adults to pick up on. And you know, quite often Kim and I'll be watching it with the kids and have a little bit of a chuckle to ourselves about some of the sayings and the realisms about life as parents and things like that. So we mentioned lessons before, and you know, taking things out of these kind of episodes. And there's talking on The Simpsons about, I think there's a real beautiful episode there, Brian, you probably know it. It's called Maggie Makes 3, and it's a bit of a backstory one about when Lisa and Bart are born, and about what Homer goes through when he finds out each time Marge is pregnant, ripping out the hair. And I think at one stage he gets to quit his job at the power plant, but then has to ask for it back again.
The Bowl-O-Rama.
Yeah, the Bowl-O-Rama. And Mr. Burns throws a big sign in front of his desk saying, "Don't forget you're here forever." And through the episode, when they find out they're having the third baby, Maggie, and the kids start asking questions, why is there no photos of Maggie? We can't see any. And then Homer says, they're there at a place where I need the most, cheering up. And he's plastered the pictures over the sign Mr. Birds gave him. And the only words they're showing are, "Do it for her." And having a couple of kids, watching that episode, I watch it every now and then, and just, makes you feel good inside that, you're living for your kids. So I think that's a real cool message in that episode.
That's really nice. I've got goosebumps listening to that, Matthew. I forgot about that episode. I'm going to go back and watch that. That is a lovely idea and a lovely episode for people to go and rewatch.
It's a really good point that you've got there, Matty, in that having probably gone back and watched a few of the shows that I did watch when I was young, I think one of the beautiful things about watching it, and a little bit with music as well, is that when you're young, you've got this innocence. So I go back and watch The Simpsons now as an adult, and I pick up on things that, and obviously we're big Simpsons fans, so on that. But as a kid, I had no idea what Marge and Homer meant when they kept saying snuggle. As an adult, I obviously have a much clearer idea of what that is. And you do see things differently as a kid. And like even listening to music, like some of the music that I listen to that I'm like, I was listening to that at 10. I don't know that was, but you didn't understand what the subtle meanings are. And I think shows that I've found that are really good have been able to blend those adult themes and those little nuances or Easter eggs, as you were saying, Kane, but not to the extent where you kind of get lost in it and you can just be innocent with the show. I think they're probably the best, I guess, cartoons that I've ever seen or enjoyed.
Well, gents, it seems The Simpsons is one of the only crossovers between the three of us. So do you have a favourite character or a favourite episode or a favourite little scene from The Simpsons at all?
My favourite character is probably Mo Sislak. Always struggling. Probably a favourite clip with Mo is, actually I sent it to you boys earlier in the week, where he is taking lessons, self-defense through breakdancing or something like that anyway. And he pulls out the shotgun when he's teaching everybody, if someone tries to mess with your sly girl, just give him the old 411 and pulls out the shotgun. Anyway, yeah, Mo for me.
Oh, I love that. I definitely would have to be Homer. Big fan of Captain Homer, and the easiest episode that comes to mind for me is I like the Stonecutter episode. Whenever I get together with some of my buddies or whatnot, we'll drink a beer or something. We'll start chanting the Stonecutter song. So yeah, but I'm a big fan of Homer. He just makes you feel good about life.
I liked a lot of the characters. I particularly liked Chief Wiggum. I thought he was just great, just an incompetent sort of person in power. Ditto Principal Skinner, just kind of no idea what was really going on, and his mum was just a hard ass. My favourite episode, I think, of all time was one where Homer ends up going to hell, especially the bit where he goes down and I think the devil chops him up and they pick up the boot and his nose and put it into the hot dog meat container. Makes my day.
That is a good one.
But that does wrap it up for another week of Daddy Eats Last. We'll be back next week for another episode, or should I say serving, of Daddy Eats Last. How's that for a dad joke? Catch you next week.
Bye-bye.